Assuming that I have around 90 minutes to go approximately, and
Right.
depending upon your response, how we proceed further, I will take a small, it's not a break, it's an interaction time because I cannot see you. And that's the major difference which I have experienced over the last 8, 9 months, even with my own students, because earlier I used to have eye contact and could see from their body gestures and how they are responding, or if someone is having some curious look on the face by which I can ask him or her that, okay, please, that thing is slightly missing over here. That's why I need an a kind of interface between you and the rest of the audience to chat or whatsoever, since I cannot see anything other than the screen. So I'll be speaking on the cognitive assessment, and then on dermatoglyphics. And perhaps for most of the students, especially, the term cognitive may be new. Assessments, they all go through assessments, right? From the nursery, we are going in for assessments, the formative assessments and the summative assessments. So we all are comfortable, and we all have a notion of what an assessment is. But most of us might not be knowing the term cognitive. Most of us might not be conversant with or acquainted with the term dermatoglyphics. So I will not bombard you with so many terms that you get confused and then everything becomes a big mess in the head. So I will go one by one. What is cognitive science? So cognitive science in general is the science of human mind and behavior. It's human mind and behavior. So the moment you say human mind and behavior, you think it must be psychology, because psychology is also something related to human mind and behavior. Then how is cognitive science different from psychology? This is the question which is likely to come to your mind. And here we say that when we talk of cognitive science, it's in a very broad term where psychology is one part of it. Apart from psychology, if you consider philosophy, if you consider linguistics, if you consider anthropology, if you consider neuroscience, and the most important and perhaps relevant to you as engineers in general, or instrumentation engineers, electronic and instrumentation engineers in particular, that is artificial intelligence. So when you talk of all these six or maybe more, at least these six, including artificial intelligence, then this entire interdisciplinary approach which is taken, that becomes a holistic form of cognitive science, where psychology is one part. And just to again, you may not be even having an idea of, I have heard the word psychology. I know that there is something called philosophy, but I exactly do not know what is philosophy, what is anthropology. Assuming again that we have a zero background or a null background, we start with the psychology. Psychology is the study of human behavior. It's human behavior, why people do, say, and react the way they do. So this is psychology. It's only about the human behavior. But then there are so many things which are added to this. For example, when we say philosophy, I think we all are philosophers, at least all the teachers, because these days what we do is the minimum requirement uh, for example, in our institute, to get into in a teaching profession is PhD, and PhD stands for Doctor of Philosophy. So any person who is PhD, including myself or yourself, or wants to do PhD as the ultimate uh, academic achievement in the pursuit of our excellence over here in teaching learning process, is to go in for PhD. It's Doctor of Philosophy. So we are all philosophers. We cannot say that I am a PhD and I do not know what is philosophy. Philosophy. So philo means love, and Sophie means of the wisdom. So any person who has love for the wisdom is a philosopher. So we all know, we all have to go in for the theoretical foundations, because we love to have study of general and fundamental problems, such as those which are connected to reality, to the existence, to the knowledge, value, reason, mind, and language taken together, it's philosophy. So once you say I am a doctor of philosophy in, you can do this PhD in a particular topic. In my case, it was, for example, telecardiology. So I have to go in for the theoretical foundations of telecardiology, about the knowledge related, reason, value, all these things which are related to that. I should have some idea, and I must have pushed the frontier a little ahead. Means I contribute something to the existing knowledge. Then okay, we get the degree of doctor of philosophy. When we talk of linguistics, it's all about the scientific study of language, and it's absolutely required by the profession of teaching, that we have to have a command on the language. Until or unless we do not have a good command on the language, it can be vernacular language, it can be your native language, your mother tongue, whatsoever. Even I think there are so many professions which are solely based on linguistics, and teaching is one such noble profession. As a doctor, you may or may not have a very good command of the language. As a painter, you may not have it at all, and so on and so forth. You can, even a person who doesn't know how to speak can be a good painter, for example, a good musician, for example. But for example, you want to be a politician, you have to have a very good command on linguistics. You want to be a lawyer, you have to have very good command on the language part. And this is the reason most of the successful politicians are either teachers or lawyers, because they know how to speak well in public and convince and convey their point. Coming to the anthropology part, it is a study of humankind, the past and the present, that draws and builds up the knowledge from social and biological sciences, as well as the humanities and the natural science. I'm just reading it verbatim. That's not actually my style of teaching, to read the things verbatim. But as such, if we see, anthropology is how we have evolved and how we have, you know, we got our brain programmed up through a series of so many generations through which we have evolved. So all that goes with it is in the form of anthropology. And if you come to the AI part, that is the artificial intelligence. I think you are most comfortable with this. It is the intelligence exhibited by machines. When you say machine, it can be hardware, it can be software, and mostly it is in the form of a combination. It's a branch of computer science. And we want to make these machines, the hardware and software part, behave more like humans. Now here I would like to take a pause and and actually want everyone to think over that as we are advancing, we are making more and more machines work like human beings. But unfortunately, we are also training most of the human beings to behave and work like machines. So the second part is not very comfortable. Humans should remain humans, but we are becoming more like human beings and more like machines. And so much so, we are becoming not only more like machines, we have started loving machines more than human beings. So this is something not a very healthy trend, that if I visit you face to face and you are spending more time on your mobile than having an eye contact with me, I will definitely not be very much pleased with your behavior. But if I reflect, that is my behavior as well in case you visit my place. So this thing we have to be very be cautious of, that although we are making humans, we are making machines smarter, we are making machines smarter, but we should not make humans dumber. So that is one of the aspect of AI. And when we talk of neuroscience, it's a scientific study of the nervous system. And when I say nervous system, it's not only to do with the nerves but with the brain as well. Coming to the parts of the brain, as I've just cited, the brain has three functional parts. I'm not talking of the anatomical parts, I'm not talking of the physical parts, I'm not talking of the structural parts, but the three functional parts. And that is, ये brain करता क्या है, brain काम क्या करता है. So if you see, the first aspect is cognitive, the second part is affective, and the third part is cognitive. Now एज आई सेड दैट मुश्किल से तो एक टर्म हमारे थोड़ा पल्ले पड़ी थी, कॉग्निटिव, और अभी एक और टर्म आ गई अफेक्टिव, और अभी एक और टर्म आ गई कॉग्निटिव. सो यू आर लाइकली टू गेट कंफ्यूज कि ये इतनी ज्यादा टर्म्स एक साथ आ रही हैं, मतलब क्या है भाई इसका. तो कॉग्निटिव मीन्स थिंक. Whenever it comes to the thinking part of the brain, it deals with the intelligence of the human being. So that part is called the cognitive part. How do you feel? How do you deal with the emotions? That's again, these things are felt by brain. ये हमें एक ना गलत तरीके से पढ़ाया गया है शुरू से कि फीलिंग वाला पार्ट जो है वो हार्ट से है. हार्ट कुछ नहीं है. हार्ट कुछ नहीं है. हार्ट एक सिंपल डम्ब मैकेनिकल पंप है. क्योंकि मैंने तो टेलीकार्डियोलॉजी में हार्ट को काफी अच्छे से देखा. इसको इमोशन से कोई लेना देना नहीं है. ये सब पोएट्स ने शुरू से, हम हिंदी में, पंजाबी में, इंग्लिश में हम हार्ट की बात करते हैं, ब्लीडिंग हार्ट, इमोशनल. और हम फिर हिंदी में गाने भी गाते हैं, दिल दिल है तो मानता नहीं, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. दिल को कुछ नहीं करना. दिल दिल तो बच्चा है. दिल दिल के साथ कुछ लेना देना नहीं है. दिल दा मामला है, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. So many songs in Hindi, Punjabi, even in English, my heart is bleeding, and so on and so forth. It's got nothing to. It's everything is happening in the brain. These feelings are in the brain. The only thing is that when the brain is getting these feelings, it's giving a signal to the heart to pump fast, right? And that's because of some issues I will not like to discuss at this moment, something called sympathetic autonomic nervous system response, and so on and so forth. So as a response to the brain, the heart starts beating faster. The heart starts beating with a higher blood pressure or pulse pressure, so that we can start, we feel the beating of the heart. My heart is beating, my heart is beating. Are heart is beating 24/7. But you started feeling that heart whenever you have a pang of emotion for someone you like or love. So you feel as if my heart is feeling. It's not the heart which is feeling, it's the brain which is feeling. It's a part of the brain which is feeling. So brain has three parts. The first part is think, the second part is feel, and the third part is act. In very simple terms, brain has to do three things: think, feel, and act. The acting part is called cognitive. I think if you are not very comfortable with the word cognitive or affective, you can simply see think, feel, and act. That's a simple way to remember what the brain does. So how do you act upon once you get those thoughts and once you get those feelings? When you are speaking, when you are smiling, when you are frowning, when you are walking, when you are इवन गिविंग ब्लोज एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ, गुस्से में आके घुसा मुक्की भी अगर हो जाते हैं, तो दैट इज द एक्टिंग पार्ट, एंड दैट्स अगेन बीइंग डन बाय ब्रेन. हमें लगता है कि गुस्सा आ गया, मैंने गुस्से में चांटा मारा, तो ये मेरे हाथ ने नहीं मारा, ये मेरे ब्रेन ने सिग्नल दिया था भाई चांटा मारने के लिए, या गुस्सा करने के लिए, शाउट करने के लिए, या जो भी कुछ ये नेगेटिव बातें हैं. और हम बहुत कुछ पॉजिटिव एस्पेक्ट में भी करते हैं, बहुत कुछ हम केयरिंग वे में भी करते हैं. हम हग करते हैं, हम किसी को कुछ ऑफर करते हैं, स्माइल करते हैं. तो वो सब पार्ट जो है वो एक्ट वाले पार्ट में आता है. सो थिंक, फील एंड एक्ट, these are the three parts of the brain. I think it's a time to take a small interactive break. It's not exactly a break, where I cannot see the chat box. Someone please say that is it okay so far, सब समझ में आ रहा है और अच्छा लग रहा है, इंटरेस्टिंग लग रहा है, या इसको थोड़ा और कुछ आगे पीछे करें.
यस सर, बढ़िया है एकदम.
So any participant has any comment on the window or wants to say anything, or
Sir, participants are saying that it is very informative and interesting.
okay, good. Thanks for this.
Sir,
Encouraging. Yes,
um,
please.
sir, can we get a correlation between heart and brain?
You can,
Uh,
sorry, what you want to get?
sir,
Correlation
if
between heart and brain? Definitely
yes,
you
sir.
can. Definitely you can. And that's my area of research.
Yes, sir.
Uh, I will just give you a very brief view of this, because I can, if I start talking on this, maybe you'll spend the rest of the 90 minutes on that.
Yes, sir.
When we say my heart is beating, it is not beating regularly. It is sometimes the beat is going up and sometimes the beat is going down. And ideally, whenever I take the breath in, my heart rate should go up. And ideally, whenever I take the breath out, I expire, the breathing rate should go down. So this is called heart rate variability, or HRV. The heart rate variability is a window to my mind. I can observe the heart rate variability and get to know what is going in my mind. When I say what is going in my mind, I don't want to say that I want to know the exact details, but whether my mind is relaxed or my mind is in tension. These are the two simple things, whether it's stressed or relaxed. So how do I get to know? When I deal with the rate of change of heartbeat, and then I take these variations and I shift it to the frequency domain. You all know in frequency domain you have various bands, and then I go in for the bands. I calculate the power of the band, and here the band is not of the heart rate but the change in heart rate. At what frequency is the heart rate changing, in what frequency range, because it will have many frequency components or frequency bands, and I will see the ratio of those bands of the heart rate, not with the brain but with the heart rate. Because heart rate can be very easily monitored, because heart rate, you simply get ECG, and in ECG the pulse to pulse time can be very accurately measured with the accuracy of more than a better than a millisecond. So it's normally 80 millisecond or something like that, depending upon the heart rate. 80 millisecond, 70 millisecond, and so on and so forth.
So, sir,
Sorry,
one of
sorry,
my
800,
faculty
sorry,
member, Dr.
800,
Devakul
sorry,
sir.
800 and 700, 800 and 700 millisecond. Yes, please. The question, please.
Uh,
Sir, Mike,
yeah.
you are saying about heart and brain, but heart is nothing but a pumping mechanism. Everything has been controlled by brain, right? We have two
Right.
hemispheres, right and left. Right is for this intelligence or this calculation, and left is for emotions. So actually, we are talking about different parts of the brain.
Yes. See, I was just telling that how are the heart and brain linked? The brain is giving signal to the heart to increase or decrease the heart rate. So if we are able to monitor this rate at which the heart is beating, we can get a picture of what is going in the brain. So this is my statement once again. Heart is a pump, but heart is getting signal from the brain at what rate it should beat. So if we are able to carefully monitor this heart rate, especially the changes in heart rate, which is called heart rate variability. If you go to Google Scholar and you find heart rate variability, you will get, if not thousands, then hundreds of research papers which tell you how heart rate variability is linked with the functioning of brain, especially the autonomic system. So this is what I wanted to convey, that although heart is a mechanical pump, a dumb pump, but it is connected to brain. Like most of the things are connected to brain. Our stomach is also connected to brain, and anything which is bad happening in our brain, the stomach also responds accordingly. If you are not happy in your brain, then you don't feel like taking more food, and if you do it by force, you're going to vomit it out. So everything is interconnected. That's what I wanted to say. All right. So should I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we come to the
Yes, sir.
cognition. We come to the cognition part, which is the mental process and activities. This cognition is used in perceiving the things, how you look at the world, in learning what is the new happening, in remembering whatsoever you have learned, how much you can recall, in understanding. I can correlate the things. एक चीज को सुना उसको दूसरे में apply करना है. I need to have an understanding. I just don't want a rote learning. Rote learning मतलब जो हमने एक स्टेटमेंट पढ़ ली, न्यूटन सेकंड लॉ ऑफ मोशन, न्यूटन सेकंड लॉ ऑफ मोशन एज सच एग्जाम में लिख दिया, बट हाउ डू यू अप्लाई दैट? दैट रिक्वायर्स अंडरस्टैंडिंग, इन्फरिंग। हमने जो बोला उसमें से आगे, जो पढ़ा उसमें से आगे क्या इन्फर किया है, व्हाट सम ऑफ द थिंग्स आर given in the statement directly, most of the things you have to infer from. So all these functions of perceiving, remembering, and so on, they need a proper assessment, that whether you have understood the things well, whether the perception is correct or not, whether the learning is correct or not, whether the remembrance is correct or not, whether the inferring is correct or not. So all these things can actually be assessed. And when you assess all these parts of all these functional parts of the brain, we call that kind of assessment as cognitive assessment. So this is the topic which we are right now working upon. So when you say you want to recognize, you want to assess the cognitive functions, you have to go in for certain tests, or we call them as tasks. So these are tasks. For example, you have a matching number task or the word series task. You can actually build the functions, you can actually build experiments around some computer software. We call it as Pebble. I will tell you what exactly Pebble is, and from there we can actually go in for cognitive assessment of any subject in different fields. So this Pebble stands for psychology experiment building language. Pebble, psychology experiment building language. This Pebble tests, this Pebble is a software you can download, and you have various tests here. For example, you have a digital span where you see series of digits which are presented in a box at the top of the screen, and you're supposed to remember, not only remember the numbers, but even in the sequence. So if in case you are able to do it, you get some score from that. And then you say, you have to, key in after some time, after the numbers had disappeared, some time is given, and then you recall all those things. So this is one example. For example, this is the number which you are given, 26585. Then this will get removed after some times. You have to recall this number 26585. If you're able to do it in the proper sequence, then you're given some score, and so on and so forth. Similarly, you have some tests which are go, no go kind of tests, means yes, no, or go, no go kind of tests, which are there, which you have to press certain keyboards in response to whenever you see P or whenever you see R, and so on and so forth. You have to do it. Similarly, you have matrix rotation test, where you see the matrix, it's rotated, and then you have to recall the pattern. So that gives, more kind of functioning of your brain is required, and it is rotated by 90 degree to left or 90 degree to right. You have to see whether it is same or not. After rotation, you have to perceive it whether it is same or different, and when you have to, you will be given a score for that, for the correct response or for the incorrect response, and so on and so forth. There are some interesting ones, like you are asked which of the two lines is longer, and most of the people are likely to say the one on the right is longer, but actually both are of the same. Because if you carefully see the things from the top to the bottom and draw horizontal lines, these two lines still, some people may be saying नहीं नहीं नहीं, ये तो ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है, right वाली बड़ी है भाई. It's नहीं, both are the same. So that's how the perception goes in. So when you say brain is the main central computer controlling all the parts. And structurally speaking, now so far we were talking of the functional parts. Structurally speaking, it has three parts. The biggest one is called cerebrum, the smaller one is called cerebellum, and the last one is called the brain stem. And this is how the brain actually looks like. You must have studied in your 9th or 10th biology classes. It has so many different lobes. Where the logic happens is frontal lobe. Where the reasoning happens is, you can say, the parietal lobe. And where the vision and the imagination and the dreaming happens is occipital lobe. Where you have memory and where you have music, so that's the temporal lobe, and so on and so forth. And these are the parts of the brain which are associated with some of the functioning. For example, you can see in the frontal lobe, you have things like your personality, planning, organization, reasoning. And then you go to the little bit back, you have the things related to the sensory lobe. And then you have in the occipital lobe, as you can see, is the visual processing, and so on and so forth. You have parietal lobe for speech understanding. So these are the functional associations of the brain. And as someone has rightly put in, but the order was wrong. The left part is more of the logical one, and the right part is more of the creative one. So those who are, we actually need a proper balance. If you become more of a logical person, then the issue is that you will miss all the fun. If you are more about being irrational, linear, objective, or you will say this is the male part of the brain is more dominant, then you will miss all the fun. You will become more like machine, right? But if you have more of the right part, which is dominant, which is related to emotion, to the music, to the art, being creative, the colors, and so on and so forth, being more dreamy in nature. So, the problem with people with too much of right brain and lesser of the left brain is that they mess up the whole thing. They become such a big mess in the life. They are too emotional. They're not able to carry out the functions very well. So we need a proper balance between being logical and reasonable, at the same time being caring, kind, creative, and being full of joy and fun. So we need a proper balance between the two. So going to the inside story of the brain, we know that we have hundreds of billions of neurons, and these neurons, they are made up of the central cell, and then we have dendrites which get the signal, and the axon which transmits the signal. And this is how the neuron looks like, and that's how these neurons are followed in computers also, and we have artificial neural networks. So these neurons, as they fire, and there are 100 millions and billions of the neurons, they're connected. So when they fire, they generate small spikes of voltages. So all these spikes, they sum up and they come to the surface of the brain. So once they go to the surface of the brain, these can be picked up with the electrodes, and we call that signal as electroencephalography. So that is basically the recording of brain's spontaneous electrical activities. So these activities can actually be measured, and they can be measured in time domain, and they can be measured in the frequency domain also, and they can be seen on the graph in the form of these lines, as you can say. So your brain can be in any one of these. If you can see the pointer, and they can be any. I think I will try to go in for the laser pointer. Can you see the laser pointer, red color ka? And this pointer, the brain can have this kind of pattern, or it can have this kind of pattern, or it can have a more flat of a pattern, or it can have very smooth ups and downs. So all these, they represent the state of our brain. It In the wakeful state, we are over here, beta state. When we are slightly tired, maybe right now after the lunch, and you are tired, it's slightly drowsy, you go to the alpha state. Then you go in for a dreamy state, and it goes to the theta state. And then you go to the dream less sleep. So this is the delta state. When you go in for the deep meditation, you also fall into this delta, and your EEG starts looking like this. And in case, unfortunately, someone is having some issues with the brain, like epilepsy, then it has sharp spikes. You can see a spike over here, and a spike over here, and a spike over here. If you're having these kind of spikes over there, then it means that your brain signal is indicating that that portion of the brain is undergoing some epileptic stroke, which can be quite dangerous and even fatal. So these are about, I said, the various kind of brain waves: beta, alpha, theta, delta, and these are picked up by EEG standard lead system. So which electrode is to be placed and how it is to be placed, it's internationally standardized, and this is how it actually looks like on the graph on the computer screen in the various colors. So this this previous one, which I may show again, is with respect to time. Here the x-axis is time, and when you convert it from here to with the x-axis being instead of time, you can go in for the frequency domain, and that comes in the hertz forms as such. So you actually can draw the power spectrum density and with respect to the frequency components, and you can actually calculate the power of theta, power of delta, power of alpha, power of beta using this formula. I will not give you the details of all this formula because in case you want to do some research where you actually want to acquire the signal, where you actually want to give certain interventions, I prefer giving intervention of meditation because I'm a spiritual scientist. I do meditate myself and make the my friends do meditation every night 10 o'clock to 10:40 on the special sessions on Zoom across the world. My friends join me from America, Canada, London, Amsterdam, and from here all over the India back to the other end of the globe to Singapore. So that's the intervention we give for 40 minutes. It's all about the talk and the meditation, the breathing exercise. So we actually acquire the signal during the meditation, before the meditation, and after the meditation, and then see what are the changes which are happening in alpha, theta, beta ratios as such. So these EEG features can be related to cognitive, assessment. For example, how your attention changes. So what are the changes? The theta range there in the frontal electrodes, how it changes this with attention, what happens to the frontal alpha band power, what happens in case you want to go in for the memory assessment, how the various alpha signals they increase with the increase in working memory in the parietal occipital fissure means the small depression which you have where the joint of the parietal lobe and the occipital lobe. What happens in case of emotions? There's some papers which we have published jointly with my students. You can always get it on the Google. Then there is an asymmetric index, that is how the left brain is behaving, how the right brain is behaving. So you can get all these signals. Some of the signals are available online and some of the signals can be acquired in your lab. But the issue with the lab is that you have to have a proper quiet room with a relaxing lounge. You can make the subject lie on a comfortable couch over there, and there you have to acquire the signals, and we see about the signals hemispheric activity, if it is equal in both or there is any difference. If there is a difference, we see going for symmetry index. And coming to interventions, you may not be feeling good, then you need help. दोस्त होते ही किस लिए हैं, है ना? If they are not able to help you, a friend in need is friend indeed. So in intervention means you do something in a manner that something in you improves, and that something in you is improving in terms of cognitive things. So when you say cognitive assessment, you do it before intervention and you do it after intervention. So intervention in my case mostly is meditation. You can go in for other interventions also. Even pharmaceutical intervention is advised. You take some drugs of the sort which are prescribed by psychiatrists and so on and so forth, which I do not personally recommend, although वो पागलों के डॉक्टर करते हैं. I'm saying this in lighter vein, right? So these interventions again, they make you improve your cognitive levels, they enhance your cognitive levels. And as I said, that even color is an intervention. This is something I will simply say, that you simply go and visit any temple, you will see the colors used in temple, they are different from what we see in out of the world, out of rest of the world. The odor, the fragrance, वो जो धूप बत्ती लगाते हैं, चंदन की स्टिक लगाते हैं, that again of intervention. अब अंदर जाते ही you first of all you strike the bell. पहले आप घंटी बजाते हैं अंदर, फिर कुछ म्यूजिक चल रहा होता है, even that is an intervention. As a matter of fact, even video games, they can be taken as an intervention which improve your cognitive level to some extent. In the virtual reality, people some spend some time over there to improve their cognitive levels. So if you talk of meditation, I'm not going to go much into. Your mind gets dissolved and you're free of all the thoughts, and it's something which is happening for many ages from ancient period. It's very helpful in reducing anxiety, stress, depression, apart from improving the other cognitive things like memory, intelligence, and so on and so forth. It also improves your physical strength. Similarly, odor can be something sweet, odor like rose, or it can be something bad as a dead animal. So that can again be used as a stimulus. Video games, we know, give a good mental exercise. Virtual reality can be used and an intervention over here. And we train the things, we train our minds, we train our brains to work properly in virtual reality as such. Colors we have seen, we have warm colors, we have soft colors. They also go in for giving us some improvement in the cognitive functioning, and that is what we call it as cognitive cracking a joke and people actually finding it witty.
Oh.
Getting
This
my point or
actually,
not? So all
uh,
those creative tasks, it's very difficult for AI to go in for a creative task. Creative task means composing a music. Creative task means going in for making a picture, a painting, for example, a good recipe, for example, uh, a piece of poem, poetry, writing a poetry for someone, and so on and so forth are the creative ones. So it's very, 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 very difficult for AI to go in for these kind of things where you can compose and imagine and write a piece of fiction and so on and so forth. So that is why the people with creative minds, their jobs are secure. And the relief is that teaching itself is a very creative thing. Teaching is a very creative thing as such. Responding to your questions, if you ask whatsoever Siri, Alexa, whatsoever you have these days to answer your questions, you will immediately get to know that they can dig the information and play the song for you or give you the answer from the Google, but they cannot answer the way you are getting it from me, or if I ask you, give me the answers. Am I clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So over to the second part. I'm as I have been earlier informed that I have half an hour to move up to 4:30. The second part is dermatoglyphics. So after having learned something about the cognitive assessment and the cognitive enhancement and the interventions, the functioning of the brain, these are simple terms I'm asking you to recall without overloading your informative system. As such, we go to the next term of dermatoglyphics. So what is dermatoglyphics? What it refers to is the branch of science that actually is studying the patterns on the skin. You have fingerprints, you have palm prints, which are present not only there but also on the sole of the feet and the toes. So those palm prints and fingerprints, they do not change. It's not the same as palmistry. Do not confuse dermatoglyphics with palmistry. The hand, the lines on the palm are different, but then you have some palm print, which is the ridge, which is the pattern. You can simply think of in terms of fingerprints as such. You study the fingerprints, and every fingerprint, you have 10 fingers on the hands, for example. I will exclude the soles and the toes and things related to the feet. Simply restrict yourself to the 10 fingers of the hand, and each finger is directly related to one functional part of your brain. So studying the fingerprints, you can evaluate which functional part of your brain is working in what manner. This you can do it for yourself. This you can do it for your spouse. This you can do it for your parents. This you can do it for your kids. The best part is for doing for your kids is that these fingerprints are not going to change, and so is the functional behavior of the brain of your kid is not going to change. And even for the case of students, the students who are listening to me right now in the second year, third year, fourth year, they actually can assess their functional part of the brain, and they might not be even aware that okay, they are very good naturalist, or they are having very good interpersonal skills they might not be even aware of. But once they study their fingerprints and they find that, oh my god, I have very good spatial intelligence, so why don't I try my hands on sculpting, or why don't I try my hands on pottery, and so on and so forth. And once they do it, they say, oh, I can do it with such an ease, ये तो बड़े मजे से हो रहा है, मेरे को तो बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है. So they can discover themselves and they can actually find what their exact passion is. And life becomes so fun in case your passion becomes your profession. So you have the passion for teaching and you are a professional teacher, so things are very cool as such. But if you don't have the passion for teaching and somehow you land up in the process of, or in the profession of being a teacher, so life will be hell for you, and you will make life hell for others, especially the students you're going to teach, and even your colleagues. You will always be cribbing, kya hai, ye hai, wo hai, ho nahi raha, maza nahi aa raha, and so on and so forth. So there is a correlation between our fingers and our intrinsic qualities and the talents which we have. So ये discover करने हैं, तो उसके लिए we go in for the science of dermatoglyphics. So this was the term which was coined by Professor Cummins. Derma means skin, and glyphic means the ridges, the pattern of the ridges which happen on, or you can say the fingerprints or the palm prints which happen on the skin, on the palm part of the skin, not on the back of the skin, but the palm part of the skin. That is dermatoglyphics. As we know, in case of our palm prints and fingerprints, they can be used when you're employing any teacher or any employee. You want to see that this is the role I'm assigning, whether his brain is actually having that kind of functionality to the proper degree. It can be studied from the palms. Why fingerprints? Because they don't change. Why fingerprints? Because they are developed when the fetus is developing in the stage of the pregnancy, right from 19 weeks onwards. The way brain develops is the way fingerprints develop. So those parts of the brain which are well developed will have a certain pattern on that particular fingerprint, and those which are not so well developed is lacking, because you cannot be master of everything. So those will be again having a different kind of pattern. And it's a kind of DNA which gets reflected in the appearance of our body. It will not going to change, and the fingerprints are unique. Even the fingerprints of your left hand are not the same as your right hand. Even they're different in case of the twins which are identical otherwise. So the very, very individual kind of thing. And this has been proved by FBI taking fingerprints. 64 billion different individual prints were taken, and not even a single pair is identical. You can, single pair means no two have been found identical. They remain same throughout the lifetime. So what we are going to do in the remaining time which I have with you, with me, it's I see on my watch it's around 20 minutes left. So we find the pattern, we characterize the pattern, we call them as minutiae, and we see that For example, again, I'm trying to put my laser pointer on, and yes, you can see this pattern is, for example, a pattern of the arc on the fingerprint. Now, don't start looking at your fingerprint right now and focus on what I'm saying. This is an arc, but this is also like an arc, but this arc is a tented arc because you see something over here which was missing over here. So this is one pattern. It's called arc. This is called tent arc. Then you have a loop. It's a right loop because it's a loop where it is the whole thing is moving towards right. Similarly, you have a left loop. This is a loop and it is moving towards the left. And then you have double loop because you have something moving towards right and something moving towards left. And then when there is nothing, everything is moving round and round, it is called a whirl. And something which is between a whirl and the loop is called right pocket loop, and this is called left pocket loop. And as you see on the left pocket loop, it looks more like peacock feather, जिसको मयूर पंख की तरह कहते हैं, and so on and so forth. So ultimately you go in for digital image analysis, and by digital image analysis you can classify the fingerprints as into 1, 2, 3, total 9 loops, 9 different categories. Basically, these are 8 categories, and when you don't get any of the categories, you go in for the last category, that is the mixed figure rates. So you have arc, tent arc, you have right loop, left loop, you have double loop, you have right pocket loop, left pocket loop, and then you have whole, and then you have the mixed figure. This is the whole one is, I think, the most interesting thing which you can easily identify if at all you have any whole in any of your hands. I came across one student, मेरे को याद नहीं ये पीयूष से जूनियर था, 2 साल या 3 साल. I was teaching in MTech. I found that all his 10 fingers had left loop in it. Left loop, as you can see. Something rare because we don't have all patterns in all the left loop is something normal, not something very good to be excited about. Oh, I have this loop in left loop. And then I have a friend. He's actually nothing less than a saint. He's fully enlightened saint. He's younger to me. He's doing business. He's a well-educated person with science background and so on and so forth. All his 10 fingers are having volts. Volts. जिसके कहते चक्रवर्ती हैं, 10 उंगलियों में उसके चक्र हैं. तो ये चक्र समथिंग वेरी रेयर. मेरे एक हाथ में 2 चक्र हैं, एक हाथ में 3 चक्र हैं, मैं 5 चक्र हैं, तो मेरे को लगता है कि बहुत बड़ा हूं, पता नहीं क्या हूं मैं. उसके 10 की 10 उंगलियों में चक्र हैं. तो ये वोल क्या रिप्रेजेंट करता है, आर्क क्या रिप्रेजेंट करता है, कौन सी उंगली किस चीज के लिए रिप्रेजेंट करती है. वी हैव अ गुड अमाउंट ऑफ information which is available. You can Google it, you can study it on the research papers, you can do research in this. You have a good amount of database available. आपके पास कितने hundreds and thousands students आते हैं, उनकी abilities होती हैं, उनको आप चेक कर सकते हो, उनके आप various चीजों को देख सकते हैं. We have a case when you can actually see whether the student is a slow learner or a fast learner. But before I go in for this slow learning and fast learning thing, I must give you a word of caution. The word of caution is that we all feel that, okay, being a fast learner is good, but slow learners are not stupid. Slow learners are not fools. ये नहीं है, slow learners are not retarded. ये बात जरूर है कि उनको बात थोड़ा धीरे धीरे समझ में आती है. ठीक है, एक बार में कहने में समझ नहीं आती, उनको एग्जाम्पल्स देनी पड़ती हैं, उनको टाइम देना पड़ता है, उनको कहना पड़ता है घर जाओ, पढ़ो, दोबारा सोचो, कल फिर आना, नहीं हुआ दोबारा नहीं, तिबारा नहीं. लेकिन एक बात उनके पल्ले पड़ जाती है, सो दे आर एबल टू रिटेन, दे आर मोर लॉयल. in case you have a in case you have an employee who's a slow learner, will be more loyal to you, will not try to oversmart you, will be an asset to the company or to the organization. So we have to have slow learners also in the team if you're forming a team. because they're not stupid people. So पता कैसे चलेगा कि फास्ट लर्नर है या स्लो लर्नर है? फास्ट लर्नर में के साथ क्या एडवांटेज क्या है फास्ट लर्नर की? फॉर एग्जांपल, आई एम अ फास्ट लर्नर, आई एम अ वेरी फास्ट लर्नर. तो मेरे को कैसे पता चला आई एम अ वेरी फास्ट लर्नर? आई मेजर्ड माय कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑन द ड्रामेटोग्राफिक्स, और उससे फिर मेरे को भी लगा कि हाँ, बात तो ठीक है. कोई बात आप कहते हो, कभी सेंटेंस पूरा भी नहीं होता और मेरे को पता चल जाता है आगे आने वाली क्या सेंटेंस में आप क्या कहने वाले हो, क्योंकि आई एम अ फास्ट लर्नर. बट मेरे साथ सबसे बड़ा इशू, या बाकी सारे फास्ट लर्नर्स के साथ जो इशू होता है, वो ये है कि बड़ी जल्दी ऊब जाते हैं. हो गया ना, बस ठीक है, चलो कुछ नया सीखते हैं. चलो कर ली ना टेली कार्डियोलॉजी बहुत, चलो अब एनर्जी कंजर्वेशन की तरफ चलते हैं. अब हो गया ना एनर्जी कंजर्वेशन, चलो अब चाइल्ड साइकोलॉजी की तरफ चलते हैं, अब पेरेंट साइकोलॉजी की तरफ चलते हैं. अब हो गया ना पेरेंट साइकोलॉजी, चलो स्पिरिचुअलिटी की तरफ चलते हैं. तो दिस इज द रीजन दैट आई हैव गो इन फॉर सो मेनी डिफरेंट. कॉग्निटिव में चले जाते हैं, ट्रोमेटोग्राफिक्स में चले जाते, इसको भी छोड़ दो, अब आगे चलते हैं, कुछ और आगे चलते हैं. सीख लिया ना बहुत, चलो पॉलिटिकल एनालिसिस करते हैं, देखते हैं अभी ये फार्मर्स का प्रोटेस्ट कहाँ जाता है, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. तो ये सब जगह से दिस इज एन इशू विद द फास्ट लर्नर. वो एक जगह पे टिक कर, ऑल्दो एक जगह टिक पे रहने का मतलब ये नहीं है कि ये कीप ऑन हॉपिंग द जॉब्स. आई एम इन द सेम जॉब सिंस 1995. मैंने एक जॉब चेंज की, दूसरी चेंज की, उसके बाद अब मैं यहीं पे हूँ, एंड आई डोंट प्लान चेंजिंग द जॉब राइट नाउ. Nor do I plan to change my wife. And that was in a lighter vein as such, right? So I'm quite stable as such, but the interests, they keep on changing throughout the life. That's an issue with the fast learners. So everything has its plus point and its negative point. So we call it as an ATD angle. This is an angle I can actually demonstrate to you. Smaller this angle, faster is the learning. Smaller this angle, faster is the learning. So I will not get into the details of this ADD angle, what is it, and so on and so forth. So normally we say 45 is okay, 35 is fast, 55 is slow. These are the things which we can go in for, and my ADD happens to be 30. So it means I'm quite a fast learner. You can also identify, you can Google it, what is it. Of the students' ADD angles in the class and see and actually verify that okay, his ADD angle is quite small. It means he or she has to be a fast learner. And as a teacher, some of the students are fast learners, some of the students are slow learners. So that's how you can verify, and you can actually do some research on that and publish a paper. I will help you out in that in case you feel like interacting with me on this case. Now, coming to the mapping of our brain to the fingerprints. So you have, for example, one hand. The little finger, as you can see, the little finger is connected with the occipital lobe, and the occipital lobe is normally associated with the visual processing. So whether you are able to do some imaginative things will be reflected in the little finger. This is called ring finger. It's to do with the music. This is all the middle finger. This got something to do with the parietal lobe, which is associated with the movement and how you are able to behave. This is the you can call it as index finger. It's related to the inferior frontal, and this is the superior frontal. Inferior and superior. Superior matlab aage wala, inferior matlab thoda piche wala. So as you can see, so all these things, how these brains, as the brain was developing, certain fingerprints were developed on the fingers, and you can actually see, you can see the colors over here, the same thing in a more colorful manner, that this is the little finger, this is blue in color, and this is blue in color, the visual part. The next one is the audio part. Audio part is with the ring finger. You can call it as purple or pink, whatsoever you feel like calling it. And then you have this wine shade thing in the middle fingers to do with the tactile part of the brain. And then you have the red part, it is with the index finger, it's the thinking part, and the green part is the the superior part, and the inferior part, as we said in case of the parietal lobe, is to do with the action part. So this is related with the thumb, this is with the index finger and the middle finger, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, you go in for the ring finger and the little finger. We call it also the little finger is also called pinky finger, pinky somehow. So this is how the parts of the brain are associated with the various portions of the fingers. It's the same thing is represented in a tabular form. And we see that when you go in for intelligence, in intelligence, we say that we don't have one type of intelligence, we have different types of intelligence. So it means that I should not ask the question, how smart am I? Rather, the question should be, how am I smart? How am I intelligent? Means which portion of my intelligence is better than the other? Everyone is smart, be sure, no one is stupid, but they don't know that how are they smart. Because normally हमारे यहाँ क्या होता है, जिसको वो अच्छा से रटा लगा के अच्छे से मार्क्स उसने लिख दिए, इट्स वन मेमोरी रिकॉल, इट्स वन टाइप ऑफ इंटेलिजेंस, और उसको कुछ लॉजिकल एबिलिटी आती है, वो न्यूमेरिकल सॉल्व कर लेता है, इट्स सेकंड टाइप, उसको अच्छे से एक्सप्रेस कर देता है, लिंग्विस्टिक एबिलिटी आती है, थर्ड टाइप, that's it. But then intelligence is not of three types only. Intelligence is of much higher and different types as such. And this is the reason, this is the main reason. बहुत बार होता है the students which are backbenchers, the students which are low graders, the students जो बड़ी मुश्किल से किसी तरीके से कॉलेज स्कूल पास करते हैं, when they get to actual life, they outperform most of the toppers. They might outperform might. I don't want to say that the toppers are not of the, you know, high performing breed as such, but it's absolutely not necessary that the person who's topping in the exam has to top in the world in the life also. Because when we are in the institute, we are being assessed for 2 3 at the most 4 types of intelligence. But when we get into life, life tests us for much different types of intelligence than what is being assessed in an institute as such. So just to know what is the different types of intelligence, we say that we have multiple intelligence, we have multiple types of learners. And जो चक्रवर्ती होते हैं, वोल टाइप के होते हैं, वो उनको बोलते हैं हम कॉग्निटिव लर्नर्स, जिनकी उंगलियों में वोर्ल होते हैं, गोल गोल चक्र होते हैं. कॉग्निटिव मतलब आपने बोला और उन्होंने समझ लिया, बस उन्होंने कहीं एक लाइन पढ़ ली और उनके पल्ले पड़ गई. They just get the things simply by reading or listening to whatsoever is being told. And then you have other loops, which means affective learners. So emotional learners होते हैं, जब तक उन्हें फील नहीं आती तब तक वो लर्न नहीं करते. We are radial loops. ये मेरे में है रेडियल लूप, ये बड़ी गंदी चीज होती है. रेडियल लूप वाले बड़े खतरनाक, मतलब खतरनाक सी लर्निंग है ये वाली. वेरी फ्यू पीपल हैव दिस रेडियल लूप्स इन सम ऑफ देयर फिंगर्स. मेरी फिंगर में है और गलती से है, 2 फिंगर्स में है. दे आर द क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग लर्नर्स. क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग मतलब वो ऐसे नहीं मानेंगे. आपने कह दिया कोविड है और आप मान गए ना, मैं नहीं मानता. वो सोचेंगे मैं नहीं मानता कोविड है. क्या किसने प्रूव किया कोविड है? किसने कह दिया ये नया वायरस है? आपने टेस्ट नया बनाया है, वायरस तो वही पुराना है. मैं नहीं मानता इस चीज को. क्रिटिकली मतलब दिस इज नॉट माय पर्सनल व्यू. द पर्सन विद द रेडियल लूप कैन से लाइक दिस. द पर्सन विद द रेडियल लूप कैन थिंक ऑफ, मैं नहीं मानता 9/11 हुआ था, मैं नहीं मानता मून पे लैंडिंग हुई थी. अगर मून पे लैंडिंग हुई हो, इन्होंने ऐसी फोटो खींच के कुछ भी करके हमें बेवकूफ बना दिया. वहां पे अगर मून पे लैंडिंग हुई थी तो एक ही बार लैंडिंग हुई, एक ही बार ह्यूमन बीइंग गया, फिर दोबारा कोई ह्यूमन बीइंग गया ही नहीं है. 1966 से लेके 2020 तक इतनी एडवांसमेंट हो गई है, इतना इतना कुछ इंप्रूव हो गया है. उसके बाद एक भी बंदा मून पे लैंड नहीं किया. ऐसा क्यों? क्यों नहीं गए उसके बाद? तो उसके माइंड में ये क्यों आता है? वो क्रिटिकली थिंक करता है. वो रिलीजन को भी क्यों क्यों मैं शादी पे घोड़े पे नहीं चढ़ूंगा, घोड़ी पे नहीं चढ़ूंगा, मैं ऐसी भी क्या बात है, घोड़ी पे नहीं चढ़ना है मेरे को, ऐसे करके वो क्रिटिकली थिंक करता है. सो ये बड़े खतरनाक होते हैं वो लोग. और ये हमारी इन्वेंशंस और डिस्कवरीज ऐसे ही खतरनाक लोगों ने की हैं, जिन्होंने एक सेट नॉर्म को चैलेंज किया है. वो जो चलता आ रहा है तो उसको चैलेंज ही नहीं किया. तो क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग कैन बी वेरी डेंजरस फॉर देमसेल्व्स. लोगों को जला दिया गया, कुपरनिकस को भी थ्रेट किया गया, गैलीलियो को भी बोला गया, बहुतों को पकड़ पकड़ के जला दिया गया कि तू तो हमारे जो इस्टेब्लिश्ड नॉर्म्स हैं, हमारे स्क्रिप्चर्स में लिखा है, उसके अगेंस्ट बोल रहा है. हाउ कैन सन बी सेंटर ऑफ द यूनिवर्स, हाउ कैन अर्थ नॉट बी द सेंटर ऑफ यूनिवर्स, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. ऐसा तो हमारे, तो उनको जिंदा जला दिया गया था. We have tented our people which are enthusiastic learners, and then you have arc reflective learners. जाएंगे घर, सोचेंगे उसके बारे में, रिफ्लेक्ट अपॉन करेंगे, फिर उनको बात पता चलेगी. सो दोज आर द रिफ्लेक्टेड काइंड ऑफ पीपल. एंड देन फाइनली कमिंग टू, ये तो तरीके थे लर्निंग के, और किस तरीके की इंटेलिजेंस है. वी हैव ऑलरेडी सेड यू हैव वर्बल or linguistic intelligence, you have logical or mathematical, you have spatial, you have musical, you have kinesthetic related with the body movements, you have interpersonal, जो लोगों में आपस में एक दूसरे से हेलो हाय करके बात करते हैं. और ये इंट्रापर्सनल, जैसे कि पोएट है, उसकी एक अपनी वे है पोएट्री लिखने का, उसको लोगों से इंटरेक्ट नहीं करना है. एक पेंटर है, उसको लोगों से इंटरेक्ट नहीं करना है, उसकी इंट्रापर्सनल स्किल है. एंड देन वी हैव नेचुरलिस्ट, जो नेचर के साथ कनेक्ट होते हैं. जैसे मैं समझता हूँ कि मैं ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग को प्रमोट कर रहा हूँ और बड़े सालों से कर रहा हूँ, तो नेचुरलिस्ट मेरे में ये एक टेंडेंसी है, एक इंटेलिजेंस है नेचुरलिस्ट, जिसमें मैं अपने आप को कुदरत के साथ अलाइन करके मैं देख पाता हूँ ये कीड़े क्या कर रहे हैं, ये पत्ते पत्ते क्या कर रहे हैं, ये पौधे क्या कर रहे हैं, so on and so forth. Going in for the verbal, this is my last, I think, 5 minutes of my talk as per the time assigned to me. In the linguistic, as I said, ability to read, write, communicate with words, writing books, and being a journalist, and expressing themselves, and politicians in debates and discussions, and lawyers, ये सारे काम वही कर सकते हैं जिनकी वर्बल और लिंग्विस्टिक इंटेलिजेंस ज्यादा हो. Even good teachers, as I said in the earlier part. Then you have a logical or mathematical intelligence with the ability to reason and calculate and go in for abstract relations and manipulate numbers. And the professions which are associated with this kind of intelligence is scientists and mathematicians and even statisticians and doctors and economists and so on. And those who are able to visualize the things in space, visualization, ability to imagine to see it in the 3 dimensions, the artists, the photographers, even pilots and painters and architects, they have to have good spatial intelligence to perform their duties well. You have musical intelligence, जो कि मेरे में बहुत बहुत पुअर है, बहुत ज्यादा पुअर है. मेरे को नहीं पता चलता कौन अच्छा गा रहा है, कौन सुर में गा रहा है, को बेसुरा गा रहा है, और मैं गाऊंगा तो बिल्कुल ही बेसुरा गाऊंगा. तो दिस इज अगेन इन द टेम्पोरल लोब, जो हमारे कान के पास होते हैं. लता मंगेशकर फॉर एग्जाम्पल, जुबीन मेहता फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. ऑल दोस डीजेस, they go in for, they have to have this higher intelligence. And coming to the bodily kinesthetics, के आगे 2 parts हैं, gross and fine. ग्रॉस का मतलब क्रिकेट खेलना है तो बॉडी की मूवमेंट बड़ी ग्रॉस है, और पेंटिंग करनी है ये बहुत फाइन पार्ट है, कैलीग्राफी करनी है ये बहुत फाइन पार्ट है, लड़ाई वड़ाई करनी है, फौजी बनना है, या इवन एक्टिंग करनी है, तो वो फाइन काइनेस्थेटिक्स है. फेस पे कैसे कैसे एक्सप्रेशंस लाने हैं, और ये धक्का मुक्की करके सर्जन्स, जिनको कि हाथ से काम करना पड़ता है, कैलीग्राफी की तरह काम करना पड़ता है, सोल्जर्स एंड बिल्डर्स. वी हैव इंटरपर्सनल, जो लोगों के साथ कैसे फील करके लोगों के साथ कैसे अपने आप को कनेक्ट करते हैं, तो पॉलिटिशियंस, मैनेजर्स, इवन टीचर्स, बिकॉज वी हैव टू कनेक्ट विद द audience, with the students and the social workers, for example, they have to have this interpersonal or social intelligence. And finally you have intrapersonal intelligence. अपने आप में है, ऑथर है, अपने आप में है, काउंसलर हैं, आप जो कर रहे हैं, साइकोलॉजिस्ट हैं, फिलोसफर हैं, राइटर हैं, इनकी इंट्रापर्सनल इंटेलिजेंस ज्यादा. एंड फाइनली टू द लास्ट वन, एज आई सेड, नेचुरलिस्टिक और फिजिकल वर्ल्ड इंटेलिजेंस. They are able to connect with the environment, with the living things, with the nature as such. So the wildlife photographers, naturalists, conservationists, gardeners and farmers, and in my case, organic, I can hold one complete workshop for again 90 minutes on organic farming and why you all need to consume organic products. You may not be a farmer, but you are all consuming products and you don't know what you are eating, and why should we go in for, and how to identify whether the thing is really organic, and what are the ways and means to obtain these organic products. We can have a workshop on that, because I think this is something which is related to the lifestyle as such. So the person who wants to promote this organic farming, for example, has to be a naturalist in his approach. So these are the fingerprints, and I will not go in for the various details and how do you identify and how do you classify and how do you find the various features and the minutiae. And this is into the digital image domain, because I have to, go in for linking these different patterns with the different multiple intelligences, as we have seen in the past 1.5 hour or so. So this dermatographics or pattern, once it is recognized, can be used for recruitment, for education and training, for leadership skills, and to know what you are really best at. Especially for the parents who are anxious, मेरा बेटा बड़ा होके क्या बनेगा? आप उसको जो बनना है बनने के लिए स्पेस दें, उसके नेचुरल इंस्टिंक्ट्स को डेवलप होने दें, आइडेंटिफाई करें उसको क्या अच्छा लगता है, क्यों अच्छा लगता है, किस में वो कंफर्टेबल है। जीनियस आर बॉर्न, दे आर नॉट मेड इन जिम। हमें देखना है उसकी नेचुरल, उसकी कैपेबिलिटीज क्या हैं।